All right. Go ahead, Belinda. You have a
Yeah.
follow-up question, is that right?
I do.
Fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. So we were talking about the quantum field. And, what I'm wanting to know, and this is what my clients keep asking me, is how do I create in that field? So how do you do this practically? Like manifest, create, be creative. How do you create in this field?
Well, I could say you do a pretty good job manifesting in the field too. And it's a combination of using the external techniques that people provide, such as using your physiology, your neurophysiology as an indices, which is good, but also from a perspective that works for you, that makes sense to you, finding bits and pieces. For me, I can't say that I've completely mastered it yet, to be quite honest, and I'm still working on my relationship with myself in relation to all that is. And there's always an update, and consciousness is frequency, and what frequency you're at, what perspective you're coming from, is going to be that relationship between yourself, the I am, whatever that may be for you, and that individualized spark, and how that relates to everything else. And so it's a relationship. So when we're talking about energy, we're talking about manifesting or being in the flow state. A flow state could be considered the overlap between discipline and surrender.
Oh, the overlap between discipline and surrender.
Yeah, that's one way I look at it. To be in the flow state is to be completely surrendered to what comes as is in the present moment. So another thing is, it's got to be in the present moment to create. That's where the magic happens. You can't be thinking about the past, you can't be thinking about the future. It has to be in the present moment, and a way where you let go and you're surrendered.
Are you doing this in meditation, or are you doing this just throughout the day?
This is a process. Eventually, what you want to do is take things from the meditation and start applying them in the waking state. So it's easier to sit down by yourself. There's a time and a place to sit down and do nothing by yourself, but there's also a time and a place to start bringing that into when you're moving throughout your life. So typically, that's one of the things Heartbreaking Coherence is really good at, is being able to bring you back into a place while you're actually interacting with an environment, with your eyes open.
Awake state. Yeah.
But being able to transition things from a meditative state into your daily life, that involves being able to stay in the present moment when your eyes are open, when you're interacting with your environment. And so I would have to say, by being present in the current moment as you're going through your life, that's where it happens. And typically that happens by being in the heart. So if you're in the heart, you're coherent, as Roland McCready and Greg Braden and Joe Dispenza talk about, the heart-brain coherence. That brings you into the present moment, allows you to align in synchrony and smooth oscillatory coherent patterns between the heart and the mind. And that kind of allows you to get beyond the thought matrix, which I call it, which is where you get into the loops, the thought matrix, the monkey mind.
Okay.
So by being in the heart, you can kind of descend from your consciousness from the mind, go into the heart, and that allows you to stay in the current moment if you're constantly tuning in. And then you're able to access the field because you're in the heart and you're in the present. And then that creates a coherence at an individual physiological level. But because we're tuned in and we're not separate from the universe, we're actually conduits for all that is. That allows us to tap into that field in a coherent way and work with it and dance with it.
Oh, wow.
That happens with different brain states as they can go over. And there's different brain states that are indices of this. But it takes the discipline and surrender of being in the heart and in the current moment, and having an open heart. And I think the hardest part is we've been trained to shut our hearts off. We've been trained to shut them off And then to avoid feeling in the heart things that need to be processed, then we end up dealing with our thoughts more often than not sometimes. And that's one of the things I had early on in my life as well. I was very intellectual and I was avoiding what was needed to be dealt with in the heart. So you have to have the courage to allow to have your heart open and to accept what comes and to do your work, to then be able to be present in an open state and to do so in a way where you can not feel vulnerable, that it's safe to do so. And so you help people feel safe, great, and you really talk to them that it is safe now to be in your open heart. It's a great time to use these frequencies coming in to facilitate personal growth. But that's where it is. It's in the current moment while you're in the heart, kind of transitioning from the brain to the heart to the brain, that allows for the body to optimally work at a physiological level. And by being in the current moment, the eternal now, that's where you create your future. That's where you are able to interact with all that is, to interact with that quantum field in a way much this powerfully interacting with your physiology. Otherwise, you're in the mind and you're projecting either the past into the future, or some sort of construct that isn't actually what you're interacting with. So that would be.
So what would you say the mind is doing right now? Where do you have the mind when you're saying to be in the moment?
Well, it comes down to simple meditative practices. And then it goes back to bringing those meditative practices into your daily life. It's allowing the mind to do what it's supposed to do, but you don't have to pay attention to it. You listen to it when it serves you. So it's not about destroying or creating war against the mind. It's part of who you are. You're never going to find wholeness if you do that.
Well, so, I mean, what I'm asking is, are you the observer of the thoughts at this point?
Yeah. So observational consciousness is one of the greatest ways to start into this.
Okay.
And that's where, thank you for mentioning that. That's actually where you just observe your thoughts. You start observing it, but it seems like really daunting at first. So I'll just go through this real quick. It starts daunting. It seems daunting to people when they hear about it, because it's like, you're thinking and you get sucked into the mental thoughts and it becomes who you are. And you're like reading. It's like, I describe it as reading a book and coming so close to the book, you face molds into the book and you become like part of this, dream, and you're part of the book. And you forget you're actually watching, you're actually reading the book, but you become the actual storyline within the book. So it's kind of like that with the thoughts. You get sucked in, it becomes who you are, and you're in this thought flow, this thought matrix, and it sucks you into that being your reality. And in fact, what mindfulness allows you to do is observe those thoughts and create a space and understand that there's something that's observing those thoughts. And you're observing those thoughts. What is it that's observing? And then you realize you aren't your thoughts, that there's a consciousness beyond thought, beyond the body, beyond identification. And that is what you tap into. And then let's increase that space between the thoughts and the observer, and just be an observer and just start watching yourself as an interested observer. And that's hard to do sometimes, isn't it? But it's a lot easier to do that if you're in the heart. So by being in the heart, that allows you to do that much easier. Otherwise, it's kind of difficult to do, because you're constantly, as very advanced meditative people would suggest, is you're eroding or frictionizing the egoic infrastructure to go away by constantly staying in the current moment and focusing on your breath. And that erodes part of the mental construct, or samskaras, or whatever you want to consider it. But by being in the heart, you just have to learn how to shift the focus to the heart in a loving, coherent, high vibrancy way, And that allows you to be in the observational state and to be in the current moment. And I think that's why heart-brain coherence is really important. And there's other ways to do that. You can practice by breathing in and out of the heart, but sometimes they say it's very difficult. So you start with what works.
Mhm.
We'll start with what works. But observational consciousness is critical to just observe it and not engage with it. So it's really like teaching yourself just to close your eyes and allow your mind to do whatever it wants. Go ahead, kick, scream, whatever, but you don't take the bait.
Mhm.
You know, you don't take the bait. And that just takes practice at a meditative state, at a physiological state, and then you start translating that over into your life. And that's where the fruits of your labor start to come in, where you start to do that. So that's where a certain level of discipline and integrating a practice into your life is really important. And that allows you to do that. And that's where some of these pioneers are really at the forefront of being able to assist humanity in doing this. But in the end, I was told this very good advice. Some of the best spiritual teachers are more like self-help teachers because they're adding to your thoughts. And really what you want to do is quiet the mind. Because once you hit the wall of knowledge, the mind can only do so much. So are you going to be adding on to the problem by conceptualizing and integrating these advanced infrastructures and spiritual teachings by thinking too much about it, or just observing it and being and just being and letting your mind float around? And the thing is not grasping onto thoughts and not pushing them away. So you can't push them away and you can't hold on to them. They just, there's no push or pull, just come and go. That's what they mean by the waves or cloud, because they're not holding on to it and they're not pushing it away. You ever try not to think about something and it just starts hitting you in the head with a sledgehammer?
Guarantee you'll think about it. Yeah.
Don't think about a white elephant, type thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be the starting point, and it's whatever assists people to get that to that point. And I think at a physiological level, that's a really great place to start, because the thoughts, the mental constructs, and the mental matrix, I call it, that's when you start thinking a lot and it starts to absorb energy and your frequency and your presence. So now your presence is spent thinking.
Yeah.
With those thoughts, as you're thinking, the presence is within the processing of the thoughts.
Yeah.
So instead of being completely there, you're in your thoughts. So I don't know if that helped at all, but that would be a start.
That did. Yeah, it's going to lead me to another question. So we're going to.
Okay.
Yeah. We're going to end this.
We'll end this one and start one more.
Yeah.
Question number 3 coming up.